Greetings, salutations, and blessings to all. My name is David Null, and my Native American name is Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I welcome you, I thank you to any of my subscribers to this channel. I wish to thank you, thank you, thank you. I have found it extremely humbling that anyone would want to listen to what I have to say. So I thank all of you who may tune in and to listen to this. Now, if you've seen any of my other previous videos, I'm going to try to do my best not to rehash some things, but if someone's new to the channel or has never listened to me before, then there's a little bit of back history that should be there. Now, I'm not going to go into any of that now, but I'm just saying, there may be folks who are just tuning in to my channel and don't know who this weird guy, with the long hair and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so let me get to this lost in the limbo. Many of us around the planet have been having a lot of lucid dreaming. I mean, realistic, when you wake up, there's like the smell of flowers where you were, or the taste of something, or you can still feel like you were holding a cup and you're like you just literally time warped out of wherever you were in your dream world back into this 3D place where we're at right now. So with that said, last night, early this morning, something within the last 12 hours, in my dream state, it's been clouded by a lot of things lately, and all this energy and all of the things and all the messages that have been being downloaded into me that I'm supposed to try to communicate to all of you. So with that said, I'm like, I found myself though in a dream that just didn't feel like a dream. I mean, now, limbo. When I was in this dream, it was complete darkness all around me. There was absolutely zero light from anywhere. But I could see myself just floating, just floating. No pain, no nothing. And my first thought of the darkness was there must be, as we're all taught as children, dangerous things lurk in the dark. Okay, so I kind of went there right away. But almost as fast as I had that thought of a danger in the darkness, that was dispelled. It was like, nope, sorry, okay. So here I am floating, and there's not a feeling of air or how do I say this? Not like weightlessness. It wasn't, like I picture, or, we have seen, the stunts with, the astronauts in orbit and so forth. And some of that I really question as to being like, okay. But we have been programmed and taught to believe that if you're in outer space, you float. Okay. Well, but in all of my dreams of things and life experiences and so forth, this dream was not me floating in space, per se. It wasn't that I was weightless. It was like I was being held up by the darkness, whatever was around me. And so it was almost like floating in a fluid. Some of us float better. I float like a rock, okay, because of my thin frame and whatever. I have to struggle to stay above water, But anyway, but in this though, There was no tumbling feeling. There was just this, whoa, where am I? You know? And I could tell sometimes if you're in a dream or something, depending on where you're at, it's like you're attired in something. You're wearing clothing. Well, I was wearing something, and I realized I was wearing something, but what I realized was that I wasn't naked. That it was like, oh, you have clothes on, more of that than, um, like if I were to describe, a feeling of death or whatever, that you would kind of feel yourself as being naked going into the next life. Just take that analogy for a second. That really doesn't explain it. So in my little limbo, because I didn't feel any threat, I didn't feel wait, let me get out of the negative speaking. I just realized I was doing what I'm trying to tell other people not to do. I felt refreshingly warm. It was quiet, but not to the point of being eerie. In fact, if you will, it was almost like I was in a womb. I'm protected. Everything's happy. But it's dark in here. Oh, okay. But I was comfortable. Fear was not in. There wasn't any fear. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, that's just a simple statement. Fear was not present. And which was like really kind of surprising because, you find your sense of reality in your being and you're floating in nothingness. But at the same time, you don't feel, I didn't sense any type of beings or any malevolence or any violence or any of that. So floating in this limbo, I'm like, wow. And so after several days of this intense solstice energy, and I've described it in other videos, like watching a baked potato jumping up and down in the microwave oven. That's how I felt. And a lot of other people have felt that way too. So to come out of this high energy into this, I'm floating in a vacuum, but at the same time, it wasn't a vacuum because I felt like I was breathing and everything was normal, but I was in, and the word limbo is in my vocabulary, but how many times do you have the opportunity to use the word limbo? So when I say I was in limbo, I knew I was in limbo while I was in it. That was just like wowzers. Miss Denise, how are you? I wanted to finish that train of thought before I interrupted myself by saying hello. Greetings and blessings to you, my dear. So with this being in this limbo state, it was without fear. And at the same time, it was really kind of like, but where am I? And there was this sense all around me, you're safe. Worry not, you're safe. Okay. And I felt myself, like I wanted to like roll over just because, but there was like no feeling of rolling or motion or up or down or sideways. I just was. And the word limbo just kept coming back to me. You're in a limbo. You're in a limbo. And I, back in the days, you know, when, I don't know, 60s, 70s, doing the limbo, I think that's what it was, where two people hold a stick out and you got a limbo under it, do the thing. Well, I never was very good at it, but that's not the point. So, but the first thought I had when I had the feeling was limbo. And I'm like, but there are no sticks or anything. But then I got to thinking like limbo, meaning as in a spiritual limbo. Being raised a Catholic, you know, when you die, before you can go to heaven, you have to go to purgatory. And you put in a state of limbo to where time or whatever doesn't exist, supposedly, right? Well, I could feel that in this place. And it's like, I would like to go back, but there wasn't anything there. No light, nothing. I mean, sound, nothing. I was just in this place, limbo. Now, I could see my body from like this point of view looking down, but I also saw my body floating from some other observational point, like astral projecting and looking down at your body or something like that. So I'm doing this video because it's like that. I've had some really strange dreams, but this one, I've been in darkness. I've been enclosed by this and that and blah, blah, blah. But nothing compares to what happened last night or in my recent dream state. I'm not worried about it, but it's just a curious observation. So I state this because maybe there's somebody else out there that had a similar type of event happen. And I just find it curious that it happened like directly after all the high energy. It's almost like we got bombarded and pushed down. Then all of a sudden our whole bodies and spirits kind of went, ah. It was sort of part of the feeling, like it was a big, deep breath and you let it out slow and you could feel all the tension and stuff just leave. So I'm floating in this stuff, which, like I'm trying to explain, it was like being in a warm bath, but without, you know, suffocating or anything like that. But at the same, and it wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, it was just very pleasing, you know. And so that weirded me out a little bit. So I woke up, you know, doing my coffee and all this kind of stuff, and I turn on my television set, and in a previous video, I said that I've stated this a couple of times, but now I'm going to be a little bit more clearer or whatever on this. And when the time change came back in March, I decided on my own little personal place here on my little 18 acres in South Georgia, I refused to change the clock on the wall. This is my reality. This is my world. This is where I live, and I go to town very seldom anymore. So, and for my own self, it was an experiment. If I don't turn my clock ahead like everybody else, what does that do to my reality? Because my reality says the clock is an hour behind Eastern Standard Time. I'm sorry, Eastern Daylight. I'm still on Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So my little battery clock is on the wall back there. And right now it says 6:30. Okay. But in reality, it's 7:27. And it's a few minutes early, but anyway, because it would always lose time. Now, so my digital clock here on this computer hooked up to the internet is, I assume, is the correct time. This is my digital phone hooked up to the same internet via a similar connection with this device. And I don't know if you can see the time. Wait. No, it's backwards. This digital device says 6:36. Now, this digital clock says 7:28. They both go down the same telephone line. They're both hardwired. Now, the phone has been giving me a little bit of weirdness since the first of the year. We had some lightning strikes anyway. So I have tried to set this clock on this phone, and I know how to do it, blah, blah, blah. You go through the menu. If I set the time an hour ahead, within 12 hours, it will reset itself back to the time on the wall. Actually, this clock is even faster than my 3 or 4 minutes ahead on battery clock. Well, now I know this one's been, ha, 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 he. Okay, no problem. But I still want to say this is hooked up to the phone company. If I call the phone company, blah, 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 they give me the time. This is hooked up to that. It's a digital signal. It should have the correct time. And it shouldn't say 6:37 when it actually, this digital thing says 7:29. So even that's off. It's an hour plus minutes off. How does that happen? It gets weirder. Thus the reason for this video. Wait, hang on a sec. I got to get my remote. Okay, it was slightly out of reach. Now, it'll probably change on me as I'm doing this. Nope, it hasn't. It's exactly right, but it's an hour off. Now I'm going to unplug my computer here and walk over so you can see this, that I'm not lying. Now, it's 7:29 Eastern Daylight Time. Let's go move the little computer here over to my Roku box that is hooked up to this exact same Wi-Fi system. Now, what's it saying? Roku. It's probably backwards. It says 6:30 p.m. But it's 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. So now instead of having just my cell phone, well, it's not a cell phone, it's a house phone, but radio operated. So now the Roku box is an hour off. So the only clock, and that's digital signal coming off of the internet through the same Wi-Fi that this computer is, to the same signal that comes down the line to my house phone. I'm in a time warp. What the hell is going on? Now, so I can't, I've tried to change the time. And when it rebooted itself, it lost an hour. Hey, Brian, hey, Milky Way. So I'm like, so I have this dream of being in Limbo, nice, warm, fuzzy place to be. So I wake up and I flip on my Roku because I'm going to listen to the radio over the internet thingy. And I look at the clock and I go, oh, okay, wipe my eyes, get some coffee, And I'm looking at the time, assuming it was the correct time. So I come back in, sit down in my chair, and I'm doing my daily checking a few, websites out and checking up on the news and everything. And I look up at the clock and I go, it's an hour off. The Roku box has backed up its time to the clock on the wall within 3 minutes. The house phone, it says 6:40 and it's 6:32 by this phone. I mean, by the computer. Now, all of these are digitally attached. This is connected to the same phone line. Roku's connected to the same Wi-Fi as this is connected. Now, why is my computer the only one that has the correct time? I can't change them back. The Roku thing, I can't change the time. It's stuck in Roku. I can change this, but it changes itself back. The clock on the wall is my time. It's just Eastern Standard. I just refused to change the clock as an experiment. Okay. The last thing I expected was to have my digital clocks go into a time warp along with my battery clock on the wall. How do you, I can't explain it, but that's it. This phone, that thing, this blah, blah, holy carb. I'm on daylight savings, but Brian, what's happened is 2 of my digital signals that should have the correct Eastern Daylight Time have gone back an hour to Eastern Standard Time, to my just, battery clock on the wall. Time warp. I think yesterday I did a little thing about how I literally seemed to witness what looked like tears in reality. And it looked like little strips of white. And I mean, it was out in the yard. I could see it like up the hill. There'd be like this. Imagine if you took a piece of chalk about that long, roughly, and turned it sideways and went down the chalkboard, just straight line down the chalkboard. And it leaves a wide path. You can kind of sort of still see the chalkboard behind it, depending on how dark you make the chalk, the marking. So it wasn't that I couldn't see through this whatever, but they were appearing in different places in my yard. I mean, looking at, this is since I've got the computer unhooked, this is the view from outside my window from here. So I've got a good view across the yard over there to the neighbor's property and the woods and the yard and everything in between. And I can look out the same window at an angle and see up my hill towards the driveway or up the driveway. And so at first, when I saw this, I thought to myself, I must have caught a light refraction / reflection when I was looking through the windows, and maybe there was light coming from another place. But when I'm sitting in this position, I can see a good ways up the driveway, but it's just a little narrow view. So, but there's very little opportunity at the angle that I'm looking sitting here. And I could see it up the hill. So immediately my brain went, well, that's not a reflection. That's that's just weird, So you had a couple of instances with glitches in the matrix also, eh? Yeah. You got an hour and you got a show in 3 hours. I'm going to try to be there. I'm going to try to make it to town and get a couple provisions. And I'm out of milk. And as much as I should give up smoking cigarettes, I'd really like to have a pack, Took me 3 days to smoke the last one. So, I'm doing well with cutting down on my smoking. But, tomorrow's Sunday and starts a club. Anyway. So, but I'm going to try to catch a show, Brian. Something else that was weird, just as a matter of timing, I guess. I've got 11 chickens. Or 12 chickens. I had 13. That's right. I lost one. Okay. So I got 12 chickens. Now, a couple of Rhode Island Reds and a couple are Dominickers. And so I've got 4 different breeds of chicken. And some of them are like 3 years old. Some are 2 years old. So, and a couple of actually just a little over a year. So there's always eggs in the hen house because of the age of the chickens. And between them, if these quit laying for a couple of days, for example, the Rhode Islands are the oldest, not a big, there's one chicken, and I'm not quite sure. I think it's the Dominicker. It's a crossbreed from the rooster I had with some of the black sex lynx chickens that I have. and it is kind of blue. Now, if you want really good blue eggs, get buy Aracanas or Aracondas, depending on how folks call them, but are big chicken, and they lay the most beautiful teal blue eggs, and they're good too, by the way. But anyway, I digress. No eggs for 3 days. I mean, none. Usually one will lay one, the other chickens will go in there. Sometimes they'll peck and break one, but I can spot the eggs that have been eaten in the nest. Nothing. Dry. No little wet spot in the corner, no little fragments of eggshell, nothing. And I can spot them because some chickens will do that. And if they need something in their diet, they'll go eat one of the other hen's eggs. So, which, by the way, I hold eggs back to feed to the chickens, the yolk and everything, so they will get a complete diet. Because most of the time they make more eggs than I can eat anyway, and nobody will drive down here to get eggs from Mr. Dave. So I got plenty of eggs. Today I got 2 eggs, and yesterday I got 1 egg. But it was the 3 days before yesterday I noticed, and I'm bringing this up just as like, okay, there's some time differentials, there's something going on. Okay, so I didn't have eggs, which is really, I mean, for the last couple of years, there's always 1 egg, No. So it's like, well, I'm not worried about it. It's just like, okay, it was the summer solstice. It was really hot the last few days, compared to how it's been down here. So I'm not blaming the chickens, but it's like, but now this time warp thing and the clock's not matching. And I'm like, well, and seeing what literally looked like, I used to do a lot of theater, and it was like taking the curtains from backstage and pulling it open just a little bit so the audience couldn't see you, but you could see the audience. Anyway, it reminded me of that. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just thought it was freaky information about, time slips going on. And I mean, I can't show you the clock on my computer, but it's the correct time. But that's wrong. This one's wrong. But they're correct to the wall clock that I refuse to change. Now, am I creating the problem with the digital phones? I mean, this is an old phone hit by lightning. Okay. The time is correct, but it's an hour off. Now, I ain't touched nothing on that Roku box. And it goes through the internet and gets timed in. And it has had, when time changed back in March, it did fine. Now, it's off an hour. But just since last night, during my dream state till now, it's still off, And it's like, okay, now what kind of flipping time warp am I in? Did I create a time bubble of my own? Yep, it's still off an hour. Yep. So I expect it to like catch up and catch me in a lie kind of thing, like, oh, Dave, you're just making this. I wished I was making this up, but I'm not. I'm like, whoa, this is some strange doo-doo. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like the giant bird of chaos and weirdness flew over the house in the early morning and dropped a big pile of something over me, I find it humorous, obviously, but at the same time, I think I'm laughing because it's so freaking freaky that, it's like, I could, I could lose my mind over this, It's like, oh, yeah, sure, Dave. Yeah, right. The clock is, yeah, you're making this up. There are a lot of things I could make up that might be, I don't know if they would be more interesting or not, but so do we live in interesting times? You damn right we do. I mean, and I don't know if anybody else has had issues with clocks and this and that. But the simple fact that I made a personal decision in my personal space, and because this phone and the Roku box are in my personal space, are they adjusting to my time in my self-imposed time warp? I just said, I'm not going to change the clock. I want to see what happens. Not expecting anything, actually. I just said, I'm not changing my clock ahead, because then I have to get all of my person and everything pushed forward in time the way they want me to, right? So it was sort of a, to them and to the system, I'm not changing the clock in my house, damn it. So I'm going to put my foot down and act like some weird SOB, and I'm not changing my clock. But I already know if I look at my clock, I got to add an hour if I'm going to make it to the store before it closes. I mean, yeah, some folks are like, well, why didn't you just set your clock ahead? It's an experiment. What happens if you decide not to go along with someone else's time? What an interesting this experiment has turned out to be. Now, I how could I have influence over? I'm looking at my Roku box here, going, now how does that happen? And it happened back when the time changed, but it was like a glitch in the system when within a day or so, everybody had the correct time, not a problem. But this is almost July. The time was right yesterday. It was right this morning at about 4 or 5 o'clock, So between 5 o'clock this morning and, well, it was 12. Which time am I using? It was 12 o'clock on the Roku box, which was actually 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, because it freaked me out because I was going to listen to a radio program and I looked at the clock and said, oh, I got an hour. I'll chug my coffee and, do my business and feed the cats, and realized, when I came back in that the Roku was on the same time as mine and that I'd already missed the start of my radio program. Oh, holy crap. And then it dawned on me during the radio program, the time's wrong on my Roku box. I expected it with my cell phone. I'm sorry, house phone, radio phone. I expected it with this because it's a couple of years old and it's, lightning has come down the line and fried its brother and what's going on? It's a rhetorical question. But still, if somebody's got a point of view, I'd be more than willing to listen. But it just seems so fantastical that the Roku box would lose an hour. Now, I'll keep an eye on it and see if it changes. And if it changes like between a certain point of day, I just had to reboot it. And it came back up still an hour late. So did I create these are questions I'm asking myself this evening. Have I seriously created my own time bubble? And that even though my observations from here, the Roku is supposed to be set at Eastern Daylight, an hour ahead of my time. Like I said, the house phone, I've been having issues with it, no problem, but nothing struck the Roku box. And I've rebooted it 3 times today, and it still comes up an hour short. So in my construct here at my house at the Little Ocklackney River Hermitage down here in South Georgia, have I created a time warp of my own to where my reality here of just myself and my house, I don't expect anybody else to go by my clock on the wall. It was my own personal decision. But now is my own personal decision and my own personal bias in this subject. Am I influencing the digital signal coming into my Roku box? And if so, why doesn't it mess with the time on the computer? But now, so they've been going one at a time. This one was first. Now the Roku box. Am I going to wake up in the morning and the time will be an hour off on my computer here? I don't know, you know. But in the construct of what we observe, and it's, you know, been discussed on other channels and in science and everything, an experiment, it has been proven to be affected by the observer. There's a phrase name for it, right? I can't remember it right now, but anyway. But to the point, though, so if you conduct an experiment, your observations will be could be slightly different simply because you're observing them, and your expectations of that experiment could be part of the reason you got your results. Now, this has been tested. So, but just bear with me a second. Drink a coffee. This is just freaking me out in a way. I'm laughing, but I still don't get this, you know? So in my construct of my reality, and because of my, I'll be damned if I'm going to go along with the system point of view on this matter, you know? I don't care if anybody else changes theirs. It's just my spot here, right? So clear with that. But then is my construct of my time bubble here, which in a way it is, I'm an hour different from the folks up the hill, right? You know, my neighbors. But in my time zone, Dave's time zone, I'm still at Eastern Standard Time. I just didn't move my clock ahead. Now, are these digital clocks going backwards to match my reality here in the house? I mean, because when I drive up the road, when I drive up the driveway and hit the pavement, I'm on their time. Okay. When I go to the store, it's 8 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. You know, I mean, I get that. But now when I come back down my driveway, did I just enter a time warp back to my place, to my reality? Now, I understand this is like, yeah, well, this is my reality. It's my house. And but how are these clocks changing and going backwards to match my time? That's my point. And it's like, so am I having such an influence of my time zone here at Dave's house to where it's affecting the signals coming in? I don't know. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here concentrating on the time on the Roku box will match the time. I don't even go there. I mean, not even, you know, that's my time on the wall. That's it, period. Nothing else. Nothing else expected of it. I'm not looking for anything else to change. I just wanted to observe from my point of view, from my construct, from this point in time and place, does it have any other effect? Holy crap. I don't know. You know, there it is. You know, I don't know. I know this just gets stranger and stranger and stranger. You know, I have a dream of being in a limbo type situation, not harmful or anything like that, but like I explained earlier on in this video, to now the times are literally changing before my very eyes from a digital standpoint. You got me. Is it? I guess to some folks it would be maddening. To me, it's like part of the, it's sort of part of the continuing joke, I guess. Hey, you know, our construct is so strange that if we want to mess with Dave, we're going to set the clocks back on the Roku box. I mean, it's just like, what? Or is it that, I mean, I really don't consider my energy to be, that's strong, like I'm some powerful wizard or whatever. I know I have, control over myself and me and whatever. But, I have no desire to like want to influence my Roku box and the time. I mean, it's just nowhere near where I would think. Way where. I mean, I have tried to will my house phone to get the correct time, because when somebody calls me, it shows up the time of the phone, not the actual time they called. So if it says, Joe called at 2:30, I have to already add an hour because he actually called me at 3:30. So if I go, well, it was 2:30 here, blah, 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 he's already gone to bed. What's the matter? You waking me up, Well, you called me at such and so. Well, it was 2 hours ago. What? Look at the clock. Look at this. Sorry, bub. Call me tomorrow, So, as an observer of the experiment, I didn't change that Roku. But is my observing of the experiment, is it altering to my time zone because I'm so adamant to not change my clock? It's not a big deal. I just refuse to go up an hour. There was not a lot of intent or thought to it. It was more of a refusal. I refuse to change my clock. I refuse to jump ahead and then have to fall back in a few months. I've never liked it. And I think it's one of the constructs. And I thought it was just in the United States. And then I found out, no, it's the same in the UK. They all switch their time at a different time. But I don't know how many countries actually jump ahead and then fall back. But to the point of this conversation is that time is what we view it. So I've just had this weird thought. What if I were to move my clock back another hour? Would these clocks then, because in my reality, if I move my clock back another hour, would these two clocks catch up? I mean, just a what if. I'm still observing this experiment, so I don't want to muck with it, But to the point, though, if I went to another portion of this conversation with time in my reality or your reality, you know what I mean? I mean, in your personal space, okay? I say my reality, that's my house, that's my here. But if I were to change that clock back another hour or take the battery out for an hour and then put it back in, it's still going to go tick-tock, tick-tock because it's a battery clock. But in my reality, would these other digital clocks try to catch up with it or fall back or, to match it? I don't know. Just a thought. Now, that's the only clock that I have other than my digital clocks, because I'm like, well, my digital clocks are always right. Look on my phone. If the battery goes, this is supposed to be correct. It's not. So what I depend on isn't dependable. All right. I keep looking over my shoulder like, am I in a time warp? Am I in a time warp now? Miss Phoebe, hello. So have I constructed my own time bubble? And is my own time bubble starting to affect things that are coming into my time bubble? At this particular moment in time, my answer would be, oh, yeah. It appears so. But again, then why is the clock on the computer not changed along with the Roku box? Are they deciding one at a time? I don't know. I'm just like, this is just so flippin' weird, but it's the truth from my point of view, So this bears some more thought and constipation, and sit on the toilet, smoke a cigarette, drink your coffee and mull over the thing for a while, because it's got some crappy side notes to this. I mean, there's nothing wrong. It's not affecting me in any way other than it's just creepy, But then again, is this another one of my angel messages? Is this another message to Dave that, some of the synchronicity of things? Like I was discussing time the other day and the other night, and I have been in different forms. Is this like an example of the fact that we create our own realities to the point that it would affect a digital signal coming into a device in your house? I'm not trying to, like I said, that I ain't got time for that mess. I just wanted to make sure if I have to go somewhere, I got the right time. That's all. So why would these things like lose an hour? Is it because of my construct? Is it because of my time bubble? This is my reality, but I'm not trying to make anybody else live it. I just look at the clock on the wall and go, yeah, okay. And then I'll look at my Roku clock and go, right, that's an hour ahead. I got to go to the store before it closes. That's all I care about time. Is it daylight? Is it dark? Unless I have an appointment. So the fact that these other devices would change time when I don't give a crap about it, other than, to make sure I'm not late for having an interview with Milky Way or something, I mean, okay. I have no constraints on time. I don't have to be anywhere at any particular time. I feed the chickens when I get up. I feed the cats when I get up or before I go to sleep. Whatever it is, it's my decision. So this is my construct. But is my construct starting to have an effect on things coming into my construct? It's damn weird. It sure enough is. I'm sitting here looking at that Roku box going, I still haven't figured that one out yet. Maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe it's just the universe saying, Dave, and trying to explain to folks that things on a quantum level and a spiritual level and things, and lots of stuff are made up and time is a construct, all this stuff we all discuss, or at least tinker about with our brains. But then to have these, what I would consider matter of fact, you can't mess with the setting on a Roku box. It just is. I can change the time on the phone, but it changes itself back. Plus, it's also 5 minutes off of all my other clocks. It's ahead, this one, and it's digital. So I can call up time in Moultrie, 985 1212, and it tells me the time, and it'll be exactly 7 minutes off. An hour and 7 minutes off. And it's a digital signal. So I'm going to go one little more further, and then I got to go to the store before it closes because my time's off. But so with this time construct thing, we are creating our own realities. Apparently, I didn't realize that my little world down here in South Georgia would affect an incoming signal. It has to be. The proof is there. I showed you the clock, Yes, it was backwards because it's got a mirror thing, but to the point though. So if enough of us think about the same time, I mean, if we all think of time at the same instant, that'll clear it up a little bit. And if enough of us thought that it was 3 hours earlier or later, could we make that happen? I don't know. I'm just asking a question. I don't consider myself so overly energetically powerful or magical that I can have any kind of, effect over a digital signal coming into my house? What? Over the Wi-Fi and blah, blah, blah? I don't care. I just refuse to change my clock. So in my world, my observation is I don't give a damn. So how would that set the clock back? You know what I'm saying? If I was thinking, boy, wouldn't it be cool if, the clocks stayed on Eastern Standard or something? I haven't even gone there. I just refuse to go along with everybody else's spring forward. So as I'm contemplating this, and, this has just happened today, just a few hours ago, and before it got too late, I just wanted to put this out there because it's like, before that damn time changes on the Roku box, I wanted to show folks, hey, this thing's an hour off. So my observations would be that I don't care. So then why, if I didn't care, where I'm headed with this is that I'm not expecting any outcome. I have zero intent on what the outcome of my not springing forward. I just don't care. I just refuse to do it. So as far as my looking at the time and constantly going, man, I wish everybody would change back, that's not there. So I'm trying to explain that I had no intent for any of these other devices in any way, shape, or form to try to modify themselves to my personal time warp bubble construct here. But they've been changing. That one, the phone first, now Roku. I don't know. I don't get it. Let me read a couple of comments, and then I got to go put my battery back in my truck. Something's killing my battery in my truck. I mean, I put it in and 2 days later it's done. Everybody here, same issue with the clocks here for about the last 6 months. Phoebe, are they changing on you, not matching? Is that what's been happening with you, my dear? And I'm from the South, and we use endearments like my dear, honey, sweetie. Please don't take offense. But I know I have one other person that I've been I'm in South Georgia, Phoebe. So there was another earthquake in Georgia. Yeah. Most people don't know it, and I found out from Dutch Sense a couple of years ago that almost on the border of the Alabama-Georgia line up towards Carrollton, Georgia, just as a reference, that there are old cinder cones, old volcanic remains there. And I've read a couple of other reports that no, it isn't, and yes, it is, and no, it isn't, and yes, it is. And so, got to run. Okay, see you, Milky. Love you too. See you later. But there are fault lines that run across the southern part of the Appalachians, and it's sort of where the rocks meet the clay. And I've been all over the state of Georgia, living here, for 44 years now. So almost 45 years. This right now, actually, it's almost my anniversary. So, of moving here to Georgia. So, I've studied the geography. I've studied under the ground where caves are and the aquifers run. I've done a lot of stuff for that. And so it seems to me there's a lot of Georgia clay and not much rocks down here where we're at. There is more to the west of me towards Alabama. There are a lot of limestone rocks and so forth like that. We don't have granite or anything like that down here. We got some little pea gravel and things. But but with the construct of time, You know, Phoebe said that she's had issues with time moving around. And Disclosure Fest, by the way, I think I was listening to Jimmy Church. It was a couple of days ago, but I think it's in Los Angeles, and it's a huge venue, and so they're just discussing things. And what I was listening to with David Wilcox and on the Jimmy Church show, Fade to Black, is that they're trying to bring out like newer stuff. Well, but the newer stuff is actually the older stuff. I mean, some of the things, and I've been following David Wilcox literally forever, since he was like doing anything. And if anything, the things he said 15 years ago are starting to become seen, known, and being common knowledge. Not through any kind of Gaia TV or his own thing, right? But I mean, they're just showing up. So, but if no one has ever heard of some of this stuff, tinfoil, I might have to read this out loud. But in spring, we're merely correcting the clock, having held it wrongly back the previous autumn. Ha ha ha. How are you? I'm fine, except for this weirdness. Yeah, I've seen several things by Wilcox. And now I got to say that there are a lot of things that I agree with him on. And the thing that I have trouble swallowing from anybody, if I'm sorry, it's just a personal thing. Not that they're wrong. I'm just, well, I've been reading the Akashic records. From where? Oh, well, I get taken off somewhere and then I read these things. And this is what it says. Really? Huh? Well, yeah, we go into dream state and we're channeling and doing all this stuff. And this is the Akashic record. Now, the problem I have is they're trying to tell us that that is the history. Not could be, but is. This is the Akashic. Who said? Well, I channeled it. And you don't think somebody couldn't interfere with that channeling at all? And you're absolutely positive that the person you're channeling is that. I mean, and I'm sorry, but I've been deceived by spirits from the other, you know, walking in on the edge, dealy bleebly. But to the point, though, it's good information. But I just can't take it as a gospel, if you will. And I don't take the gospels as gospel either. The information should be discerned by every one of us and by every one of our spirits. But when folks start pounding the table about this is the true record because the ancients told me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You give me no point of reference. You just say, well, you know, the earth was buried. Well, I know the earth is older than folks talk about. I know certain things. But for you to tell me that the aliens wrote this down in the book somewhere and that you're being told, and like, I'm getting a lot of downloads from my folks, but they don't go into Akashic records. Because what I've been told is everyone who's gotten a download from this type of thing has gotten misinformation. There's 9,000 people channeling, you know, St. Michael. I know St. Michael exists. That's not my issue. But of all these people that I watch and keep up with, oh, St. Michael this and oh, St. Michael that. And I'm like, Now, the folks that have channeled Mother Mary, her answers and mine are really close. But all these other folks, it's a supposition. It's a hypothesis. It's a dream. But they're convinced that it's real, and they want you to be convinced that it's real too. And I'm not convinced. It's good information, and I believe that these people have good intent, but it's all supposition. Now, some of this goes back to the Sumerians and stuff like that, and things can be tracked back. I good. I got that. And I can believe that. I don't have issues. But when folks are trying to say that they're, going off in spaceships and reading these things and, oh, but the ancients said, I've got an alien interview that I'm going to share that was written in 1947 from an ISB that crashed out in the desert, out in the West. And this has been on the internet for quite a while. However, it's been one of those little quiet things. And there's some information that I'm going to give. I got to go to the store. But when I get back, I've got it loaded up here. It's called Alien Interview Roswell. And it's by, let me see if I'll give you just a little bit of, I can't share screens or I'd show it to you. I have to shut down and log back on to share a screen. This was originally written by, I'm looking for a name. Hang on. I was way down in the page. It was copyright by 2008 by Lawrence R. Spencer. It was printed. The first printing was in 2008, but it's free on the internet as a free download. Now it says alien interview based on personal notes and interview transcripts provided by Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, and Lawrence Spencer did editing and supplemental footnotes. And Lawrence Spencer was the author of the Oz Factors. Now, I'm going to do a complete video on nothing but this. And its discussion with, this being, this alien, who for 6 or 7 weeks was in the custody of the United States government. And this Miss Matilda, she was an Army nurse and was called in when this being was brought in from the spaceship, etc. And the being chose her to communicate with above all the generals and privates and anybody they could bring in. This entity, Errol, refused to communicate with anyone but this lady. Okay. And so this is a book about that. But now there are some key points in this that ring so true to me. And it does have something to do with like some of the Akashic records and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, all right. But the interesting point of some of this, and I'll cover it when I get back, is that some of our history that Errol explains, A-I-R-L, Errol, is how Errol, anyway. So most people don't know about this, Mark. Hi, Mark, by the way. I didn't say hello to you. My apologies. But that the entire incident of the 6 or 7 weeks that this entity was there, some of the things that she imparted with Miss Matilda, and I say that with respect, they just hit home with me. I don't know. I've listened to a bunch of people over I was one of the first people to have watched Bob Lazar on VH tape in the 90s, early 90s. I mean, I go way back with some of this stuff for myself. But some of the things that Miss Matilda writes, and she is recalling what was, spoken to her. It just, it feels right. I don't know how else to say it. It feels right. And so I want to share that with y'all. And you can download it yourself. I can't remember where I found it. But if you type in alien, now I named this as a file, Alien Interview Roswell. That's not the name of the title of the file. It's an alien interview. And I will say it one more time. It was, oh, where'd her name go? I went way back down the page again. Lawrence R. Spencer. Miss Matilda sent this information to Mr. Lawrence, and he in turn took this and condensed it and laid it out. So he was like a ghostwriter in a way, or a second author, because she had already passed away by the time he wrote he took this information, and she released it because she was dying. So, but anyway, here's something that is just an interesting note, and it's sort of like a quote. We ask as fools who know not our own spirit, where are the hidden traces left by the gods? Interesting. Some very interesting little tidbits in this. And I want to give you her name at the top. And again, oh, crap. Alien interview, Matilda O'Donnell, O'Dnnell, McElroy, and that is spelled M-A-C, capital E-L-R-O-Y. One word, McElroy. So it's Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. Editing and supplemental footnotes by Lawrence R. Spencer. And he's the author of The Oz Factors, which I'm going to have to try to see if I can find that book, because if Miss Matilda thought so much of Mr. Spencer for her to send all her information and allow him to put this book together, then she must have thought a lot about him and his writings, which she says in this, right? Now, I want to, when I do this, I would rather spend the time on what the Isby Errol spoke about versus how and what Miss Matilda went through to have the conversation with the entity. And so the Isby. And so that's why I'm like, here, you can go download this. It's a PDF file, and it was for free. I just don't remember where I found it. So, but with that said, I'll be back in a little while. Let me check this really quickly. I have 8 p.m. Isn't that weird? I got 8 p.m. too, but are you in Central Zone or Standard? All the time in the world. 8:04 computer time. Wall clock is at 8:11. Well, I know my wall clock's set fast a few minutes, but not an hour. I mean, anyway, ears stopped ringing. Finally got out of town today. Went to the lake swimming. Oh, I've been trying to get to the river. Oh, man, I want to go swimming so bad it ain't even funny. But to your point, Miss Phoebe, my left ear day before for the last 3 days was so loud I was having difficulty hearing anything. Now I've only got a little bit of ring on this side. Oh, and by the way, that's where I got nailed by the tent pole thing the other day, and it's healing. It's sore, but it's healing. So yeah, that's a curious thing you brought up, because I was going to kind of bring that up too. I just forgot. Just what's the most objective way to see our civilization today? What would you think if we are aliens, right? Oh, wait, they've made that secret deals with the elites here to hide everything from us. I don't know necessarily if they made deals with us. I think they made the deals within themselves. The aliens have been bitching about us, come on. Let them know. I sat by the Snake River a couple hours this morning. Yeah, I got to go to the river. I don't know how I'm going to get I just got to go. And it's not that far, about 20 miles due south of me. So we're going to wonder who to trust. I think we should wonder who to trust regardless about alien or not. I have met a lot of individuals in my lifetime, and sometimes, you think, well, that person's a good person, and you find out that they're just, wow, just unbelievable. And what I find interesting, though, that the more I have observed people, and I'm just have been an observer of people all my life, that hmm, what observations do I see? And it's that people are like chameleons, change the color of the skin. But they obviously, I mean, some of them, and who's to say they aren't worse out there? There are worse out there, and there are benevolent beings that are so benevolent that they literally glow from that. Um, Den Fuller says, I mean, that's the story I have generally heard. Have I met any aliens or even heard from them mentally or whatever? Perhaps like in dreams or a daydream. It's entirely plausible to me. Well, until 2 years ago, when I went to Ohio, and there's a video that I did about the spirit orbs in Ohio, or the petroglyphs, I think. And that was the first time I'd ever been contacted by an outside being other than my spirit guide, which is a hand on the shoulder, nice kind of little feeling, and like a little bit of download, not necessarily conversation. I had conversation with them folks in Ohio. I mean, they were telling me how to set my camera, what the flash to set, and I was getting a conversation. And so I didn't believe, well, wait. I believe like you, Tinfoil, in that it was plausible. And then when it happened to me, I went, oh, I ain't been in the lake in years. It's about 3 minutes away. 3 minutes turns into years. Time is the enemy. Or not. It's your construct. I'm finding that out. By who to trust, yeah, I meant aliens. But yeah. Well, you see, but the thing is that aliens, if we don't know who they are, they could look just, I mean, if you go with the premise that, I got blue eyes, and it's been said that, if you have Palladian DNA in you or whatever, then you have a propensity to have blue eyes. Now that I'm sure that not everybody that has blue eyes are Palladian, nor do I would subscribe to the idea that someone could have Palladian DNA but have brown eyes or green eyes. So, but could it be a preponderance of, or a majority of? Okay, I can go with that. There used to be way back in the day that all brown skinned people, most of them had dark eyes. Well, but then in the mix along through the years, it's like Native Americans. If you find a blue-eyed Native American, somebody's been in the woodpile, usually because most of them have brown eyes or dark eyes, So if you look in certain cultures, simply because it's a culture like in Africa, if there are multiple tribes that they're within a particular, geographic designation, and folks have not traveled much out of that, then the preponderance of them to have dark eyes or blue eyes or whatever that's just the way genetics run. But now things are popping up kind of weird, like, okay, I'm a Palladian, and okay, all right. Now, I must say that back at the age of 10, 11, 12, when I started having the Mother Mary visitations, I would wake up in the middle of the night for no reason whatsoever and look out the window of my house in Tampa. And back then there weren't many street lights, so you could see the stars, right? And I would invariably, there would be Pleiades sitting in the sky. And it got to be that, I would just sit and stare out the window middle of the night for no reason, but just look at that little cup up there in the sky. Now, I had no idea what that was, who was related it to, none of that at that age. And even when I took astronomy, real astronomy courses with, 10, 12-inch reflector telescopes at the University of Tampa and South Florida and Tampa, and anyway, and other places, I saw the rings of Saturn way early, and what Jupiter looked like and so forth. And it's amazing to be able to see it when you look in that little eyepiece and it's out there. That's hard to deny that our solar system exists. So am I Pleiadian? I feel like I am. I got blue eyes, but nobody told me I am until recently, because I had never asked, because I just don't find it important. What's important is the message. Somebody on one of the channels earlier, they were interviewing somebody and they were discussing, it was on Soapbox, and I'm not putting them down, but there were folks in the chat who were like being kind of rude, in my opinion. Here was somebody talking about, GMO foods and cancers and stuff like that. And people are picking on him because, well, he's not a PhD. He doesn't have a real doctorate. Well, I know a lot about GMO foods and I know a lot about these kinds of stuff, but I'll be damned if I'm going to school and get a degree that says I can pile things higher and deeper, PhD, piled higher and deeper. A PhD just means somebody conned a bunch of other folks who have those letters beside their names too, to make them think that they're really damn special. I've met some really stupid PhDs and some very intelligent garbage collectors. So we need to stop this. Oh my gosh, he doesn't have a PhD. He's not really a doctor. No, is the information good? That's the key. That's the key. Is the information good? So, but too many of the collective want to mealy mouth and pick things apart. Look at the information, not the person. Look at what's being said. Does it resonate with you? Look at the information as a collective, search through it and do your own little discernment. But is it relative? Does it fit? Regardless of who the person is. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson comes out and he's a PhD and he's one of the biggest lying mofos there ever was. He's lying to all the children and all the people trying to understand about cosmic this and cosmic that. And one lie after another comes out of his mouth. Because if you take what he says and go in and do your own due diligence, you'll find out he's a liar. The speed of light is not a constant. And he repeats it over and over and over again. Speed of light is not a constant. And there are other things that he discusses. Oh, well, that can't happen because of blah, blah, blah. But you trust him because he's got a PhD. He's a doctorate of physics, and he's an idiot. But you're going to listen to him, right? Instead of listening to me, who've been watching this guy since he was 11 years old, and where I've made concrete observations from my point of view as to where the moon is and how the moon's been wobbling and how the earth has been wobbling, my position of where the stars are in my point of South Georgia and on the globe. Sorry, folks, globe, not flat. But to the point, though, that, my personal observations, that guy, I don't even want to say his name again, but that guy, I'm like, do you ever go outside and look up at the sky? That's my question to him, because if he would shut his mouth long enough and go out and do his own observations rather than reading off of a script, he would know himself. But you see, he's a paid shill, along with Bill Nye, the science guy. So all these children, Bill Nye, he's a liar. That's not science he's teaching you. He's teaching pseudoscience and what they want us to believe. So this thing about just because he has a college education, in my humble opinion, don't mean squat. I used to work with engineers that had master's degrees and all this stuff. Oh, they had degrees that went down and across the floor, work experience, and they couldn't drill a hole and tap it out to put a bolt in it. They didn't know that there was there's a really tight fit, a normal fit, and a loose fit on any type of thread to be threaded into metal or whatever. I mean, these guys were making $120,000 to $175,000 a year. Like, Mr. Dave's only making $35,000. And I'm teaching them how to be an engineer. But I was a machinist first. And I learned how to drill holes and how to do this. And I learned how to keep tolerances. I learned when you put a block of raw steel in a vise that you have to, have to have a 0 point and where to go and how to do it and all this kind of stuff. These guys, not a clue. Not a clue. They were given designations to tool steels that were too brittle. And when the tooling was breaking all the time and they were spending $200, $300, $400 per day per machine because they had the wrong designation of tool steel, these bright piled high and deepers were going, well, it must be the machine. No, you put the wrong, you gave the wrong designation for the heat treatment. It's too brittle. You have to back it off. And you shouldn't use A2 or D2. You should use this other. Oh, my goodness. Well, when I proved them all wrong, 7 engineers were let go or fired within 3 years because I just put them to shame simply by doing my job. I didn't have to prove anything. But look, okay, you want to do this. Then I would go to my boss and say, boss, I'd like to have some of these made with a different tool steel to see if we can improve this. Okay, you got this, blah, blah, blah. All right, fine. Order them, get them in. Come to find out they work. And then all these, I was in the middle of a meeting with 7 engineers jumping down my throat. You can't change the tool steel on that. That's a heat. And I'm like, but you damn near killed me. Oh, but they're doctors. Yeah, trying to kill me. And you. It's even around noon to solar noon. What matters? The Gregorian system of time, I have no doubt, is nothing but a construct to control us. Not that it's necessarily bad. No, but it is to control us. And it is a construct. I mean, I was saying in the video before, when I traveled around and did a lot of puppet shows, you be safe too, Miss Phoebe. I'll see you all later then. But to just finish this off, I made an analogy that, when you go up 75 and you hit Chattanooga, there's a little, if you're headed towards Nashville, you go through this little thing where you go into the time zone of Alabama, which is central, and then you drive around for a little bit and you come back out and then you're in Eastern time zone again. So, and then I would go up 24 and go into the central time zone. But because you're so close to the zone line itself, at 7 o'clock when it's dark Eastern time, it's already dark at 6 o'clock Central time, and only because they're a few miles away. So it's constructed, okay, this zone is this, but even from one side of the central time zone to the other is a difference, like where the sky is and where this is, and you have to adjust. Because you're closer to Eastern time over on this side versus where does Central leave? Before it hits Mountain time, but to the point though. So it's a construct. It's a construct. So love you all. Thank you much. Prayers and be safe. And I got to go to the store. Bye, Miss Phoebe. I'll chat with you later. And I really do hope you all are having a good day. Maybe this was fun, at least in part. So see y'all. Bye. And 3, 2, and 0 point.